What do you need to know about the dynasty landscape going into the 2024 offseason? We're going to break it down in each and every division here over the next couple of weeks. We're going to start things off in everyone's favorite division in the entire NFL, of course, the NFC South. So we're going to go team by team here, and we're going to talk about who their pending free agents are among the offensive side of the ball, the fantasy positions, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end. And we're going to mention some players also who I could easily see being cut or traded, and then also a few players with some mega opportunities that could arise from some of these moves. So let's start things out in Atlanta, where the Falcons are going to have a new head coach. We do not yet know who that will be, replacing Arthur Smith. And at quarterback, neither one of those two guys, Taylor Heinicke or Desmond Ridder, are free agents. However, Taylor Heinicke is likely a cut candidate. They can save about $6 million off the cap by doing so. I fully expect it to be the case. I expect it to be a rookie that steps in there and has the opportunity to compete with Desmond Ridder and hopefully win that job and be a guy for them. Maybe they also go the veteran route, but Taylor Heinicke probably off the roster. At running back, Cordarrelle Patterson and Keith Smith are both free agents this season. Keith Smith, that's kind of a just a depth player, nothing really there. But Cordarrelle Patterson, just kind of getting him out of the way and making this a true two-player backfield, never's going to hurt a guy, right? So, not that Cordarrelle was interfering with Bijan too much, but it is kind of nice just to remove that one more piece out of that offense and really kind of let it be two guys at least, and you're not worrying about the occasional touchdown or the occasional catches being stolen by Cordarrelle. At wide receiver, everyone's a free agent except for Drake London, Van Jefferson, Scotty Miller, Cordero Hodge, and Mac Hollins, all four wide receivers. And then at tight end, Mecole Pruitt is a free agent, with Jonnu Smith being a player I want to highlight as a cap casualty. That, to me, the three players I'm going to highlight from Atlanta as real dynasty opportunity players here are Drake London, Kyle Pitts, of course, two obvious guys. They both, they're highly drafted players. We've been loving them for years when they get the opportunity, right? We've been hoping to see that big breakout from them. And I think that the depth chart clearing out for both of them is definitely a good thing. But I also want to give Tyler Allgeier a little bit of love here. I know Bijan's the guy and Bijan's the man. I think there's a real buy low opportunity here on a Tyler Allgeier. Just think about how many handcuffed running backs throughout the course of an NFL season become very valuable. And they can often be bought pretty cheaply in fantasy football and dynasty. So I'm not saying to go trade a second round pick even for him, but if you've got maybe a low end boom bust wide receiver, 4 type of guy, I don't mind. Or if you just have a different handcuff, maybe an older handcuff, and you can swap him out in a 1-for-1 with Tyler Allgeier, I'm perfectly fine with taking that chance. I think Cordarrelle being out of there does pave that way for Allgeier to be a true 1B with Bijan, or just a true 2 behind Bijan. And this Falcons offense, hopefully it'll get a little bit more exciting. Still a lot of things to play out there with the Falcons. But I do think Allgeier at least does have a little bit of a runway to be a higher end handcuff option. Let's go over to Carolina. Let's get the crap teams out of the way first here, right? Carolina, their only 2 free agents in the offensive skill position players is DJ Chark and Laviska Shenault. Adam Thielen is actually still under contract, and to me, looking at the numbers, I think he hangs on this roster. But he is very old, and so I could see a world where Jonathan Mingo has a big opportunity to take off a little bit in this offense in year 2. I don't know if Jonathan Mingo's good. That's the problem there, right? And I feel like we always have these with a few different wide receivers per year where they don't do much in year 1, but they're kind of highly drafted. Mingo, I believe, was a second round pick. He was a second or third round. Maybe he's just going to be a sky mover, and that could be the case. Or somehow he turns out to be, look at what Nico Collins just did, right? So wide receivers tend to at least have that opportunity to pop a little bit later on. Having 2 veterans come off this roster is probably a good thing for him. I do expect Carolina, however, to bring in something at wide receiver. They definitely should, and give Bryce Young a few weapons to hopefully at least give him a little bit of ammunition out there. As far as trade or cut guys go, Ian Thomas is really the only one thing for sure that falls off this roster. Miles Sanders, I could also definitely see. However, it's not very productive from a cap standpoint to do it, but he just did absolutely nothing in year 1 of a big contract. So maybe they do move on from Miles Sanders. On to New Orleans. They've got one player at each position here. Jameis Winston at quarterback, Eno Benjamin, Keith Kirkwood, and Jimmy Graham at tight end. Those are the free agents that are pending for this team. I can also definitely see them moving on from Michael Thomas. They can save, I believe it's about $8 million. And, he's been banged up for the last how many years? He's not been that productive for years either now. And if you can save a substantial amount of money, the Saints always around, from basically the Super Bowl until the league year, the Saints are in the headlines making just every restructure possible, saving every dollar, looking under every couch cushion they can for money. I can definitely see that being a move. Alvin Kamara's a guy I just want to note here, and not that I think it's necessarily going to happen, but the cap situation does lean itself to where if they wanted to, they could. In my opinion, an extension is actually more likely and kind of spread some of those dollars out over the next few years. But that could create opportunity for Kendre Miller and even Jamal Williams still being in this offense. Williams, you get him for a third-round rookie pick, if that even. You may be able to just throw some $5 at somebody and be able to get Jamal Williams at this point. So not a bad one there. Kendre Miller, definitely a guy, though, who I'd be maybe looking to buy a little bit. Again, not too hard and extreme on it, though, because I do not expect Kamara to be gone, but there is a possibility of that. But then also, he's a veteran running back. It's never bad to have a young handcuff behind a player like that. The guy I really want to highlight, though, is A.T. Perry. There's currently only 3 wide receivers under contract for the Saints in 2024, one being Michael Thomas, one being A.T. Perry, and the other being, of course, Chris Olave. A.T. Perry showed some flashes down the stretch this season for New Orleans, and so I think that he could have a bit of an opportunity in a team that's not going to have a whole lot of cash to go upgrade everywhere. He could be their wide receiver 2 going into next year, and maybe he can give you, I know it's kind of a dirty thing to say, but maybe a bit of a Gabe Davis sort of a season, sort of run. Maybe a little bit boom, a little bit bust. I'm not saying he's going to be great and amazing or a fantasy wide receiver 2, but he could be a usable flex option in the future. Last team in the NFC South is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They've got Baker Mayfield, Chase Edmonds, and Mike Evans as their free agents this offseason. I fully expect Baker to be back. I think they'll do a contract similar to the Geno Smith deal to bring him back, like what Geno just got in Seattle. A deal like that where maybe it's really a 1 or even a 2-year deal, kind of disguised as a 3-year deal. We see that a lot in the NFL. Mike Evans, I think it'll be interesting. I think they should bring him back. I think they will try to bring him back. I think if he wants to, he will be back. But I think if he wants to go get a ton of money, if he wants a big bag of money or to play for a real contender, then maybe he's gone. I do think there is a chance of a Chris Godwin trade also this offseason. And I think there's also a very good chance Russell Gage is out the door. That saves about $11 million. So this whole wide receiver room is really kind of in flux. And Littlefinger from Game of Thrones once said, chaos is a ladder. And I can see Trey Palmer climbing up that ladder and having a really good opportunity this upcoming season. If either Evans or Godwin is gone, I think Trey Palmer can slot right in there and almost be a little bit of what Godwin was way back when Godwin first had his breakout. You had a veteran receiving room at that point. He wasn't the one. Evans was still the one. But I think that if anybody leaves this offense, especially if it's Evans, then I think Trey Palmer could really be a breakout candidate for this upcoming year. And right now could be the time to strike and go get a player like that. I do also want to mention one other guy with some good opportunity is Sean Tucker. He's kind of alone in that backfield with Rachaad White right now. And I think anytime you see a guy who you have even just a slight bit of interest in as a player being alone as the backup running back, that does lend itself to some opportunity for goodness, right? Even if it's not necessarily going to be like super high-end handcuff value, think about what we got out of a Zamir White. Think about a Zach Moss rather. Guys who the starter went down and there was really no one else in the roster that can be trusted. I think Tampa Bay's backfield is one to watch because I think in an ideal world for fantasy, Rachaad White and Sean Tucker are the 2 names you know. And then maybe it's just like UDFAs or like a Chase Edmonds type, right? The guy who's walking from that team this year. And I think that could really leave an opportunity for Sean Tucker. Again, not going crazy here. It's a Zamir White is my comparison for him. But I think there is value to be had there. And in Dynasty, sometimes those sorts of moves at this time of year are the moves that can really make a big benefit for you in the championship rounds, in the playoffs, in the season. So Guys, that is my dynasty look around the NFC South. Just kind of some looks at, what's moving pieces for this team, right? For these teams. What players are on their way out. Of course, players will be brought in. So it's not like Mike Evans is leaving and they're doing absolutely nothing at wide receiver. But, it does lend more opportunity for some players buried on the depth chart to potentially move their way up, guys. So what do you think about these 4 teams? Leave those comments down below. Let me know your thoughts on the Falcons, the Bucs, the Saints, and the Panthers. And what guys on those teams you think could have a greater opportunity moving forward. And that'll do it for me. I will see you guys next time when we do another division.